Grab your cup of coffee. Sit down for a story. Let's all go exploring. Making it after 40. Making it after 40. Making it after 40.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Making It After 40 podcast. I am your host, Lisa Rodriguez. I am an actor and writer who is still trying to make it after the age of 40. On this show, we explore what it means to be an artist trying to make it as a middle-aged person. My guest this week is actress and yoga teacher Bunny Barclay. I met Bunny during the pandemic while doing The Artist's Way via Jennifer Seffert, who I've mentioned on this podcast before. And in that 12 weeks, I really grew fond of Bunny and all that she had to share. Specifically, I admired that she is continuing to pursue her dreams and book work in her 70s. Bunny isn't a famous actress, but an artist who has chosen to keep her passion alive using the local theaters in her community, booking commercial work whenever it's available in her corner of Maine, and by being a yoga instructor. I hope you'll enjoy this open and honest conversation with an artist who carries so much life experience and wisdom. Enjoy. Okay, so today on the show, I have Bunny Barclay. Barclay? Clay. Okay, Bunny Barclay. I think I'm thinking of the Barclay. It's Barclay Bank.
Correct.
In England.
Yeah. But we're not related, I don't think.
Oh, darn. So you're not like a millionaire,
No.
a billionaire?
Oh, God, no. I wouldn't be trying to make it after 40 if that.
Yeah, if that was the case. Yeah. So Bunny is an actress. And Bunny, I know you're an artist in other ways, but I know you mainly as an actress from our Artist's Way.
Mm-hmm.
How many years ago? Is that 3 years now?
I think it was
2?
I think it was 2 because it was January. Yeah. So it was January of 2021.
That's right. Yeah.
We were in still in pretty much lockdown.
Yeah. And so, so I met Bunny through there. And again, Jennifer, I've mentioned her name a couple times on the podcast. I'm going to have her on eventually.
Yes, you should.
Yeah, she's great. But yeah, Bunny was really an inspiration to me. We were often in groups together. I don't know. I just love that you're still making your art, and some of the things that you shared in there about making your art and finding your way at your age has been really inspiring. And it's other artists like you and actors like you has been kind of the reason that I started this podcast, because I was like, there are people who are not just 20 years old or 30 years old, still pursuing this. And
sure.
Since The Artist's Way, I've seen that you've booked a bunch of things, and you booked some while we were doing it, and that's really great. So, and Bunny is over on the East Coast in I can't remember if it's Rhode Island or Maine.
Maine, Holden, Maine. It's just outside of Bangor, Maine. So, yeah. We're about 3 hours north of the New Hampshire border. So we're 4 hours from Boston, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 8 hours to New York City.
Well, that still means you can book stuff there. So
at this point, I choose not to do that. I have representation in Portland. So
Oh, okay. That's great.
Yeah, that's great. And I am a yoga teacher.
Oh, yeah. You're a yoga teacher. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
So,
do you want to share with us your age? I don't know if you're comfortable doing that.
No problem.
Yeah.
I'm 73. I just turned 73 in
That's awesome.
In October. So, yeah. Still journeying down the path. I'm still walking the path to making it after 40.
Yeah. It doesn't end.
No,
that's what I learned. It doesn't end. It's so funny. My dad just turned 70. Mm-hmm. And my mom will turn 70 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's It's so funny how your perspective of age changes as you age.
Yes.
And I remember asking my mom of like, do you ever feel like, oh my gosh, I'm almost 70 years old and like I still feel like I'm 30.
Oh yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the reality is like 70 isn't what I thought it was when I was 20.
Right. Except when you try to do some yoga poses that you probably shouldn't be doing when you're 70. Forget
it. Yeah, there definitely are limitations that some physical limitations that start to show up, but that's why you do yoga.
That's right.
So that way it doesn't
That's right.
It doesn't slow you down. Your body doesn't become the hindrance to you living your life the way that you want to.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? I know we've touched on the things, but yeah, I'd love to hear about, because that's something that I don't know. I don't know kind of what what your journey has been in your life. And I'd love to hear about that.
Okay. Well, I'll start actually before I was born, because I have relatives. I have a great grandmother who was a performer.
Oh, okay.
I think just theater, but I'm not sure. And then I have a grandmother who was a performer. Her daughter was a performer. She was a singer and a performer. Supposedly vaudeville, but we don't know if it was legitimate or vaudeville. Vaudeville was like, no, wasn't
yeah,
cool.
Vaudeville in quotation marks.
Yeah, that wasn't cool to be in vaudeville. And my mother was a community theater person and a singer as well in our community. I grew up in Vermont, in Burlington, Vermont. So I have that in terms of my background. So that's my heritage, the female performers in my family that I know of. I don't know if there are any other relatives. As a matter of fact, I'm going to hopefully pursue, there's a casting call for Henry Louis Gates' Finding Your Roots coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I dearly want to do that. But anyway, I digress. Then as a kid, I was a dancer. I took ballet classes and all. I loved to dance. So there was that. Then in high school, I discovered drama, and it was in, plays and so forth. I wasn't like the lead, but I did Gwendolyn and The Importance of Being Earnest. That was fun.
Oh, very nice.
And my father died when I was young, when I was 13. So he was a big supporter of mine. I loved him dearly. And not that my mother wasn't, but she was trying to make a go of her life, trying to survive and raise me and my brother, my older brother, who was in college at the time. So she was busy trying to just hang in there. So I wasn't super supported, but I did want to go to major in drama in college. And my high school counselor, she was the drama teacher, but she wasn't super supportive. She had another fellow actor in my class who was he was like her pet. And
the gold, the golden guy. There's always one.
Yeah, there is. And so she was like pretty much supporting him. But I did go to Syracuse University in their acting program for just 6 weeks because I fell in love.
Oh no.
Yeah, I fell in love, and I didn't, I don't know, I didn't really have the self-esteem back then, or the self-knowledge really, about my abilities, or, I had no clue. And so I just wanted to kind of like be discovered. And that was it. Oh, this is going to be great, And it did, I didn't realize, okay, you got to put in the work. Right?
Yeah. So, sounds familiar. I understand that.
Yes. So I came home, got married, had 2 kids. And went to nursing school in the meantime, because my husband at the time was going to medical school, so we were into that. And in the course of that, I went back to dance and singing just in the community. I took dance classes, modern dance classes, because at my height, I'm 5'10" and I weigh about 150 pounds. So I wasn't going to become a ballerina. So that was off the charts early.
Yeah.
But I found modern dance, and I absolutely loved that. So I went back to dancing, occasionally in classes, and just sort of keeping in touch with my creative side. And also singing, like in a college, a general chorus kind of a thing at our local college. And then I got divorced. And the energy changed majorly. I was kind of like way dreamy in my head for all of those years. And I was divorced before I was 40. I was in my 36 or so when I was divorced.
Okay.
The energy changed really, really big time. And I got super physical, processing all of anger and all that kind of stuff. And yeah. So
that's a huge. I've been through a divorce, and it's. I tell people it was like one of the hardest, darkest times of my life. It really is a death, and I was going through a grieving process, and I was mourning the loss of this relationship and the life that you thought you had, and I didn't understand that was happening at the time, but it was just it was so dark and so lost, and that's when I really hunkered down on therapy.
Well, it was interesting because I did have therapy and it was great. But also earlier, before I was divorced, my mom started introducing me to some interesting reading, spiritual type reading. And I started, became very essential to me. And so that's sort of that whole spiritual side of my life really took off as well. And a lot of that was exploration and so forth and so on. And
me too.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. The spiritual side, I got tapped back into that during that time too.
Yeah. And anyway. just one book led to another. And it was like, okay, I'm like dialed right in.
Yeah.
And actually it wasn't too long after I got divorced that I met my current husband. It was like 6 months, because I remember the day very specifically. It was February 2nd, 1988, that I met my second husband.
Aww.
I was out cross-country skiing. It was a beautiful, crystal clear winter day, sun, shining, the beautiful snow, and I was practicing because I was doing all the physical stuff. I was cross-country skiing practicing to be in a race. And I stopped on the trail. I was by myself, stopped on the trail, and I looked up. It was just this gorgeous day. And I said, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for this divorce to happen. I'm ready to move on. Yeah. And then I skied into the lodge a few minutes later, and my present husband was sitting there with friends of mine who I didn't know were there, but old friends of mine, and I went over to say hi to them and have some cocoa and all that kind of junk, and there he was sitting with them. So
that's awesome.
Anyway, so we were married in 1990, but it was interesting. I feel I'm a person that needs to have some ground, some people around me, some people who love me to ground me and support me. So once I had that, with my present husband, I started having these dreams. And the dreams were about finding the kid that was my high school counselor's pet, the actor kid.
Oh, yeah.
It was dreams about finding him.
Okay.
And I kept having them sort of, relatively regularly. And what the heck, And so I would analyze my dreams. Why would I be dreaming about finding him? I'd like be in New York City, on Broadway and walking by a theater, and I'd think I'd see him, but he wasn't really there, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He became an actor, and he's still a performer, and he had quite an interesting career. But anyway, he's still around. But anyway, I'd be having these finding him dreams, and so once I figured it out, it wasn't finding him; it was finding me.
Ah, yeah.
It was finding the love of the art, whatever I wanted to create, the acting, the whatever it was, that it was finding me.
Yeah, and he was just representing that because for you, he had
he made it.
character that you wanted. Yeah.
He had made it. Yeah. He'd been out in California. He'd done all this stuff. And so that was really interesting. So I woke up to that. Then almost simultaneously, I found yoga. I started taking yoga classes. And when I found yoga, it was like a light bulb going off, because it was the movement piece for me, which was very important in my early life. And it's also really creative. So it took me until I was around 40 to about 50 to kind of really put all of this together. It took me about 10 years. In the meantime, I had another business. I had a catering business and all kinds of stuff. I did other things. I actually worked for our local professional theater company as their kind of office person, fundraising person, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I worked behind the scenes. But after that sort of 10-year hiatus, I said, okay, I've got to do this. So I started figuring out where there were people in Maine that could help me. There was a gal who was a casting director only just about an hour away, and I started taking classes. And we have a college called Rockport College in Rockport, Maine, and about another hour away. And I started taking classes there, and they would do, because they have students studying film, they would always have a need for volunteer actors to be in their films. So I started going down there to volunteer to be in student films and learning the craft of how to be on film, which was really interesting because the students were learning it too, and they were really neat professionals. So I did that for quite a while, and then I became a yoga teacher. And so it's been this process from the time I was about 50 to now, and just slowly putting one foot in front of the other. I've done some, fun little, not so great indie films, and actually one really nice indie film called Brilliant Mistakes that I didn't have a speaking role in, but it was, it was really lovely, and I still am in contact with the director on Facebook. But I used to travel to Boston occasionally to audition, to Portland to audition, and I actually went to Hartford, Connecticut to audition for something a long time ago. But nowadays, of course, everything's online.
Yeah.
So it's much easier, but it's kind of an obstacle, the distance for me.
Yeah.
And I've had to make a lot of compromises because of that. My husband doesn't really understand the business.
What does he do?
He's retired, but he used to. Okay. He used to be a chemical. He used to sell chemicals to the paper industry.
Okay.
So up here in Maine, that's we used to make a lot of paper. We don't much anymore, but they make it all down in the southern part of the country now. But he just thinks that the acting business should be like, oh, they should pay you to go down and audition,
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
Oh my gosh.
If you're up for a job in the business world, they fly you out,
That is so funny, because my husband made a similar comment when, like when we were still in kind of lockdown and I was doing self-tapes. He'd be like, how much time have you spent doing this? You've spent this much time and you're not getting paid for any of it? Right. Right. Yeah, well, that's not how it works.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I was going to do during lockdown. I was going to tape all these monologues, and have them on file. I think I did one.
Yeah. No,
But, it's been interesting, when you making it after 40. I mean, of course, the title of your podcast, when you asked me to be on it, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if have I made it? And then I thought to myself, well, I probably have. I've set some goals for myself, and I've done commercial work. I do commercial work here in Maine. I'm being paid for it. I've done some professional theater work here in Maine, right? We have a professional theater company here in Bangor that I've done small roles with. Nothing recently, but we have a new director, so I'm hoping to maybe you get a role. I do community theater. Have done some lovely roles with local community theater companies, which are really quite good, actually. So, I've made it.
Yeah, I think, and I think the whole thesis of this podcast is that, making it can be whatever definition you want it to be, depending on who you are. And I think part of it is, I look forward to talking to actors, whether or not they're at the beginning of their career and they're over the age of 40, or if they've been doing it for a long time and maybe things have slowed down, or heck, if I could get Bryan Cranston on here who didn't make it until after he was 40, I would love to
there you go. Just
be so open to that. Or oh my gosh, my brain is not working. Jennifer Coolidge, who just won the Golden Globe. I mean, she's been working all this time, but she's finally, you could say, well, she finally made it, and here she is. I think she's in her 50s. But the point is I think once you kind of get into this middle-age stage and beyond, people don't expect you to be an artist anymore. It's like they expect you to kind of be settled into, maybe I'm making too big of a generalization, but the kind of blueprint that's been laid out for the American dream is you work your job, you get your pension, and then you retire and you're done.
Yeah. Baloney. I can't stand sitting for long periods of time.
Right.
Literally. So I have to move. And that's one of the reasons why I teach 5 yoga classes a week. So, and that's an act of creation. And it's a performance for me.
Yeah.
Because I sit down on my mat on Monday morning, and depending on what I've been reading, thinking, doing for the previous few days, I sit down and it just kind of comes. And I have a little pad of paper, and I decide a theme, and then I start moving, and it comes. And that's a whole act of creation. I just let it sort of download, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
And what is so interesting to me is that sometimes I'll teach that class a few days later, and somebody will come up to me and say, "Oh my God, how did you know I needed that?"
Oh, that's
and that really
rewarding.
Oh, well, that gives me goosebumps. I didn't know that they needed that, but whatever. The universe put us together. So the act of creating is there in the yoga, as well as anything else I do, theater, commercial, whatever. And the yoga also is a super good way to learn how to focus. I took acting classes with Valerie Landsberg, who was Doris in the series Fame way back when.
Oh, okay.
And she, I don't know if she lives in Maine now, but she has a Maine connection. And I took a bunch of classes with her back in my 50s, to kind of get this whole thing. And she called whole acting. And she had seen me one year, and then, a year passed, and I did another class with her about a year later. And she said, "What's happened in between?" And what happened in between was I got my teaching certificate, and I was doing way more yoga. And she said, "Your ability to focus and take direction from me and to change was was off the charts compared to what it had been the year before."
That's really interesting. That's really cool.
So that part is really important to me. So I always do yoga before I do anything on the stage, or I even try to do a little bit if I'm on a set doing a commercial or something. I try to do something yogic, prior to it.
Well, I think that's because you're kind of gathering all your energy and getting your focus and getting yourself grounded.
Right.
I know for me personally, it's very easy for me to kind of get all up here in my head and like have my energy going all over the place when I go in for an audition.
Yeah.
And so I have to remind myself to ground before I do that, because otherwise I don't know what I've just done, and it's not focused, and then it doesn't feel real. Then they don't believe you.
Right.
If they don't believe you, then they're not going to book you.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah. So
I think that's really.
Yeah, I try to do that. I try to incorporate yoga in just pretty much everything I do.
Well, something also that you said about the creation with the yoga is like, you sit down and you kind of download what the flow is going to be. And I think that's not unlike writers, right? A lot of times writers will say they sit down and the words just kind of come into them. A lot of them, they kind of like tap into the universal mind or whatever. And it just kind of flows. It's not different. I think you're absolutely right. It's just another aspect of creativity.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people would realize that that yoga teachers would do that. But if you really think about it, they do.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I have a script. I write my class out in sort of a little shorthand that I've developed for myself. And it's always there. And because sometimes and there are some yoga teachers who never do that. They just, it's always off the top of their head. And I've always admired that. But for me, I use a script, quote unquote. And it's interesting because I did some improv classes a bunch of years ago, just to try to get that in my toolbox, right? And it was disastrous for me.
Yeah.
I came out of doing improv feeling awful, like crying and like, oh my God, I can't get this improv, and I'd be thinking, I think I should have done that or this or that, like an hour later, and it was just like, I realized I'm not quick enough brain-wise. I do have a slight dyslexia, so that, that could be part of it, but it just wasn't my thing. But it was really interesting to take the 6 weeks or whatever it was that I did it. It was really interesting, and I loved watching, my classmates, sort of rise and shine, and me going like, what the fuck? Oh my God, get me out of here. And I was talking to a really good friend of mine who's an actor here, and he said, oh, I felt the same way. He said, I'd much rather, and I agreed with him, I'd much rather translate someone else's words or put my stamp on someone else's words in a script, a play, or whatever, than to just, pull it from whole cloth.
It's definitely a different tool. It's a different skill for sure. And I do improv and I think I do okay.
Yeah.
I'm not like one of the greats or anything like that, but I think I do okay. But I know for me, my biggest hindrance, and I think I would do much better if I can like get over this block. My biggest hindrance is that I don't want to screw it up. But the whole thing is like, you have to fail. You have to fail to get bigger, and you just are bigger, better.
Yeah.
And you just have to do reps. And so that's what I try to remind myself. I haven't done improv since the pandemic and whatnot, but I'd like to get back.
Is Teresa improved?
Well, actually, yeah, Teresa is improvised.
So.
I think I get nervous. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I get nervous when I'm like opposite someone, but I don't know. There is like, because I went through the whole Second City course, like you learn to kind of just like relax into it. And I think once when I get that relaxed flow, I'm okay. But yeah, I do think at times like, oh, I could be better. And we all can always improve. Right. But
I think I might be able to do musical improv a little bit better. I don't know. I mean, we have a group there were several groups in Bangor, actually. And there was one fellow who, one group that does occasionally, one of the gal's husbands is a musician. He plays the piano, and they'll take suggestions from the audience, and they'll do like a whole musical, for 15 minutes or whatever, improv.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I might be able to sing better than actually go.
There's a group here in LA called the Sound of Musical Improv, and they They are so good. I've gone to see their shows, and they're just phenomenal. The
Yeah,
way that they improvise an entire musical. I mean, like, I think improv is great, but then like this,
yeah,
improvising a musical, you're making up all the songs and the lyrics and everything all.
I know.
Oh, holy crap.
I
I'm
know.
so impressed by them.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Um,
impressed by that whole thing myself. It's just really cool.
so I want to ask you, how did your kids, I don't know if the word take it is right. How did your kids feel about you getting into acting and finding your way through in your with your creative soul?
Well, it's interesting because my kids were both grown up and basically out of the
Yeah.
house when that happened. Um,
Oh yeah.
my son was born in 76. He's 40, whatever. And my daughter's 54. So right now, so they were kind of like out doing their own thing. My
Yeah.
son, as a matter of fact, did theater in high school,
Mm.
and he lived in New York City. He did go to the school for performance and television, something. There's a school I can't remember the name of it, but he
Yeah.
went to a 2-year program to be an actor and didn't pursue it. He ended up
Oh.
getting a writing degree at the New School. But I went down to New York and saw him doing an off Broadway thing, which he's really quite good. He really was very good. He was very good in high school and all that kind of stuff. And I definitely supported him. They supported me, definitely. They didn't like think it was stupid or anything like that.
That's great.
Yeah, they always were very supportive, and still are. So
Yeah.
and in fact, there'll be times when I'll ask advice.
Yeah.
So he's always been a creative type, and my daughter's creative as well, but not in a different way. She was a musician in high school, and she teaches Koya, which is a sort of a spiritual dance kind of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
So she's done a lot with her creativity, so that's been, that hasn't been a problem for me at all. And one of the things that my son and I share is the fact that sitting in a house is a place where we feel super comfortable. When I was a kid, I was about 8 or 9, my mom was in a community that the university started a Shakespeare festival, a summer Shakespeare festival, the University of Vermont.
Okay.
And my mom had a couple of small parts in the very first summer that they did it. And so she would take me to rehearsal. Not every day because she had small parts, so she didn't have to be there every day. But whenever she had rehearsal, she'd take me because, why not? She was only there for a couple hours or so, and so she'd take me to rehearsal. And so I'd sit in, and it was a theater in the round. It was a small theater in the round. So I'd sit in and watch the rehearsal, and watch the comings and goings and the stoppings and the starts and all that kind of stuff. And I was totally fascinated, totally, absolutely loved it. I'd sit there for hours watching it. And one night she got home and she started making supper, and my father got home from work and he said, "Oh, where's Bunny?" And she said, "Oh, I forgot.
Oh no.
She's at the theater." And of course, it was only a few miles away, but still, the same time. She had she totally forgot that I was in the theater. I didn't know she'd left. I was still there, like, enjoying, just loving watching the rehearsal. And I'm here 8, 9 years old. And so my son, sitting in a house in the dark, or even not in the dark, but sitting in a house is where I feel super comfortable. I go to the theater and I just, and my son feels the same way.
Well, it sounds like it's in your blood.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
passed down.
The great grandmother and the grandmother and my mom, and it definitely is. So
that's really special. It's a really special thing that you share with, like you said, in your ancestry and in your roots. And that's really neat.
Yeah, I have lots of paperwork from my great grandmother, my grandmother, in terms of the plays they were in and where they were and what they sang and sheet music and I have reams of this stuff. It's just all stuffed into plastic boxes. So I say, someday when I'm 92, I'll go through it all.
I can relate to that. My uncle Glenn, he has all these documents from my mom, and it's my mom's brother, from their parents, and great grandparents and beyond, and I've spent some time in some summers going through that because I'm really into that stuff as well.
Yeah.
And like we're going back and we're looking at pictures of like the school that my great grandmother opened in Los Angeles in like 1880, whatever, and yeah, well, it's really
my great grandmother was born in San Francisco. Maybe they knew each other.
You never know. I come from apparently my great grandmother's father had a creamery in Los Angeles, and they were wealthy. They were very wealthy.
Oh man,
we don't have that wealth now, but back then, yeah, I don't know where it all went to.
God.
That's really special that you have that and you can pass it on to your kids. Do you have grandchildren?
Yes, I have.
So do you, I think I've seen that one of your granddaughters is also doing theater.
Yes. Ella, who's my daughter's daughter. She is in her freshman year at NYU.
Oh, wow.
And she's in the Playwrights Horizons group.
Oh, wow.
So
that's so special.
Yeah, she is really, really incredible. Of course, I watched her in every little play she was in. She only lived, they live 2 hours south here of me. So, we go down and see her in plays and stuff. And she sings. She sings really well as well. And see her choral performances and all that kind of stuff. And she just blows me away. She did, oh God, what's that beautiful song from Into the Woods that Meryl Streep sings at the last something or other? It's the real emotional song. She sang that for her senior performance. Oh my God, it was just like everyone like jumped up and like, because she's got the acting chops behind it.
Yeah.
She just doesn't stand up there and sing. She knows how to put the emotion into it. And so she was applying to all kinds of schools all over the place. And it was between one school in California, I think it was Cal Arts, and NYU at the end.
That's right up here by me.
Yeah, at the end. And she chose NYU, and she's absolutely loving it.
Oh, that's great.
So she has that kind of support from her parents and from her family and me and, her all her other grandparents to do what she's doing. Plus she has the self-esteem. Plus she has the smarts, which I really I know I had the smarts, but I just didn't know I had it back when I was her age. So
I think that's so important is having the support and then having the confidence.
Yeah.
That was something that I suffered from was so much insecurity with my talent. And where I grew up, there were so many talented people in my schools, and some of my good friends were so talented, and I didn't have the training. I didn't have the classes.
Yeah.
And I just, that's what I needed in order to develop my talent. I had some raw talent, but I really needed someone to help pull it out of me and take it to the next level. And I just didn't have those resources. So,
and that's what my daughter and her husband did. I mean, they saw in Ella something, and she took voice lessons, pretty much all through high school. And, she actually has the same age that I do down in Portland. And she's actually did her her second commercial before she left for school. But she had much more support. I think maybe nowadays, I think people realize that you need that kind of, you need that behind you. You can't just, march into some place and expect things to magically happen.
Yeah, and I think in your situation, it sounds like your mom was going through what she was going through, and she just didn't have the time or the resources. My parents, there are 5 of us, so my parents were raising 5 kids and just trying. There was not extra money for a plethora of classes, but I got to do soccer, and I did all the musical they made time, and they let me do the community theater. It just wasn't like, oh, you can also take a billion classes.
Right.
So they were very supportive, and they did everything they could within their power to help me, and I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting because I know my mom's hanging out watching, because I had a number of years ago I had a dream that she was like, I was taking a class, some sort of acting class, and she was like there taking the class.
Oh,
like, oh yeah,
that's really special.
Yeah, and I still, in fact, I'm taking a scene study class starting in February at our local professional theater class. So I try to do something, pretty much not all the time, but trying to keep the grease,
the creative flow going. Yeah, well, and I think it's obviously paying off, because like you were just talking about, you've booked several commercials.
LL Bean being one of them.
Yeah, you've got some print work. You did LL Bean print work, right?
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
So, and I think that's wonderful, and it's more than I've been booking lately. So,
well, I haven't done anything for last summer. I did a commercial last summer. But it was just a little one.
Well, let me ask you a question, and then maybe it'll come back. I was going to ask you, so I often will ask people, like, what do you look forward to in your career as you continue to age? And so I kind of would ask that of you, because when I ask that question, I'm usually thinking like, oh, like when you get into your 70s. Well, now that you're in your 70s, what do you look forward to with like continuing to build and grow your career? What do you see for yourself in the next 10 to 15 years?
I'd love to continue to do more commercial work. Print or film. I'd love to have like a plum supporting role in some sort of in a movie or something, or probably a really good plum role in a fantastic play like Evelyn Ashford in Wit. The play Wit is one of my favorite plays, and she plays the main character's professor that she is very emotionally attached to, and it's a small role, but it's a fantastic role. I would love to do really impactful small roles, because I really don't have the desire to do like a whole play like Night Mother or something like that requires just huge amount of,
you don't want to have to carry a whole show.
Exactly. Because I want it to be fun. And that's what I was going to say. It needs to be something that's engaging my brain, which it always does anyway, because I have to, you have to memorize lines most of the time anyway. So you're engaging your brain doing that. It has to be engaging. The people have to be interesting and fun to be around. And that's what I want, to be around the like-minded people that are creating as well. And so I think that's for me, that's a big part of it, is to watch and be a part of what someone's creating with me involved, so that's, and the fun part, that's it.
Do you think it helps keep you young?
Oh, for sure. Because people never, when I get into a situation, they don't know how old I am. There are a bunch of people who don't know me, and they go, oh, well, I say, well, I'm the oldest here. And they'll look at me and go, yeah, right. And then I tell them how old I am. They go, "What the hell?" I was recently in a show this fall called Shuttersome, and it's a show. It was a short play written around Edgar Allan Poe's writings, like Telltale Heart and a bunch of the other stuff he wrote. What's the other one? The Raven, Telltale Heart.
Yeah.
And it was an ensemble cast. And maybe there were 10 of us. And that was a lot of fun because the director was interpreting, the poetry. And we all had, like, in the Raven, I had a certain amount of the Raven to recite, not all of it, but there were 4 of us that were all the main character in the Raven. And it involved movement. The whole play involved movement, and it had 73-year-olds and 18-year-olds in the age range in the cast. So that was a lot of fun.
That is really cool. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So
I think even like in my 20s, I did a play here in Los Angeles with some of the folks. Some of the women were like in their 50s or 60s. And I learned so much from them doing that play. I love it because I think, like, I'm sure they learn. I hope maybe they learned some things from me.
Oh, sure.
Maybe not. But but I definitely learned some things from them. And it I think it's really nice when you can have that diversity in ages.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do, there's a theater company in the area that does summer Shakespeare outside. And that's a lot of fun. And I will try out for that. I'll audition for that if there's a part that I think, that I want.
Yeah.
And I haven't done it in a couple of years, but the last role I did for their Shakespeare production was Margaret in Richard III. And that was super plum. That was a great role because, of course, it was right at the beginning when Trump was, it was like 2017. And I was super angry. And there was a lot of political stuff happening because Richard III and all this, all this stuff. And it was really cool to do. And Richard III was played by a woman.
Oh.
So we had a blast doing that. I had a blast doing that. Of course, and Margaret's only in 2 scenes, so I didn't have to carry like a 3-hour Shakespeare
But that's
play.
Kind of the sweet spot, right?
Yes.
You can be a part of this cool show. You get a meaty role, something where you can make some really great choices, come out, do a stellar performance, and then go kick back the rest of the time and hang out with everybody.
Exactly. And that's what I'd love to continue doing.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So I have 2 questions that I ask every guest. So my first question
What's your favorite swear word?
No.
Do you remember that show?
What's your favorite swear word?
The guy from the New School, the guy that died, he used to, it was a show where he talked to actors.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes. The Actor Studio.
Yes, the Actor Studio. James Lipton.
There you go.
And I always watch that and think, what would I say if he asked me that?
Yeah.
So that's what prompted my reaction. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Oh, no, fine. No, I always ask people, what advice would you have for a young person who's maybe looking to pursue their career, or someone like you who, at the age of 50 decided to start doing this again?
Be persistent. And put one foot in front of the other and don't get bogged down, because it's more like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I mean, it feels like that. And so you have to, and if I were be technologically savvy.
Yeah.
Nowadays, definitely. I mean, at least have a teenage kid to help you.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much my downfall, I think, is some of the technological sides of auditioning and self-taping and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I can do it, but I get super nervous about it. But yeah, just be persistent. Don't be afraid. Just keep going, but trust your intuition. Like for me, I figured out improv wasn't, my intuition said improv's not for me. So that's, that's fine. Trust yourself, trust your gut, and keep on going. Just if you love it deep down, no matter what anyone says, just keep doing it. Because my husband hates it when I'm in the rehearsal process for any play, because I'm gone a lot every evening. He'll say, why are the rehearsals always at night? Because everyone works. This is community theater. Everyone has a day job. That kind of thing. So just try to ignore all the stuff and go with your heart. Definitely.
I think that's solid advice.
Yeah, and sitting quietly. I sit in meditation every day. Things come to you, and you can ground, and you can listen to your heart that way. So if you give yourself some time to be still, to listen, that's important too.
Yeah. I think that's great advice, whether you're pursuing a creative career or not.
Right. Exactly.
But I like that. Listening to your heart, kind of drown out the noise, because there will be naysayers. There always will.
Yeah.
And I think some advice that I keep hearing people say is like, if there's anything else you can do, go do it. But if you find that you can't give up acting, or whatever it is your heart's desire, do it, but you have to do it full force, and you just have to like really dedicate yourself and know and understand that it's going to be hard. I mean, there's a chance it could be easy for you,
right?
But for 99% of the people, it's really hard. And so,
and living where I live, away from any metropolitan area of any substance, 2 hours at least. I made that choice to stay where I am. I could have made another choice. I could have said, hey, I have to go to New York, I have to go to Boston, and whatever, and then I would probably be in another divorce. You know what I mean? I had to make choices. And be happy with that, and to know that I could still have my brilliant career, a little career, and really enjoy it.
But that's kind of the compromise. That's the choice that you made. And you made the choice to have your marriage and but still your way of finding that is through the professional local theaters and community theaters. And that's just as relevant, and probably in many ways much more satisfying than trying to audition for film and TV, where you never get to work because you book like 0.1% of the roles, which is what most people are doing. For me personally, I have to, if I want to act on a regular basis, I either need to be in class or I need to go do some theater. And I haven't been able to find the time to do theater, because it really is, like you said, the rehearsals are at night. And it's not that I can't find the time. I'm not prioritizing it. And I will acknowledge that. I could choose, like, I'm going to prioritize this theater because I want to act on a regular basis. But instead I'm doing it through classes and other things.
And I've also made the choice to have a life. A house, a dog, a garden, all that kind of stuff. And I love to cook, which is another creative aspect of myself, to cook and entertain. And so, just to like dreaming of, okay, well, recipes and meals and, all that good stuff. And so that's the whole, have to realize that also informs anything that you do in theater or, commercial or TV or anything.
You have to have a life outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
So
okay. Yeah. No, I think that's super important, because if all you're doing is like pursuing the art or pursuing the career, you're going to be so boring.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, so my last question is, what does making it mean to you now versus when you were younger?
Oh man. When I was younger, it was like, okay, I have to be a movie star. That to me was like making it. Okay, that's making it. And actually that's still somewhat there for me, because being up on a stage for me is also a happy place. Because I've been on a stage since I was a little kid, dancing and and acting. So being on a stage does not scare me at all. It makes me feel really great. So when I'm walking onto a stage, it feels like I've made it, I guess. It feels I'm home. So just put a spotlight on it and then that'll be good.
There you go. And then you've made it.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's all about what you love. Really, it is. And I think I would have been a really, really bitter, more person had I not pursued my actual, had tried to figure out what I was dreaming about, and tried to figure that out, and then classes and all that kind of stuff. Had I not pursued it, because it was always fun, it was always interesting. Once I started pursuing it, it just it snowballs, and it's a cool thing. It's wonderful.
That's a really cool thing. Well, there you go. People, follow your dreams, your literal dreams.
Pay attention to your literal
Have them
dreams.
Analyzed.
Write them down.
Your soul is speaking to you.
It's true. I had this absolutely wonderful, incredible dream about a week and a half ago. And it was about, there was an old boyfriend of mine sitting at a...
where are we going with this?
No.
Just kidding.
Sitting at a table somewhere. And he didn't know I was there. And I saw him and I went over to him and we just kind of like looked at each other and recognized each other. And just basically it was an embrace, a huge embrace. And the love I felt from that dream, it wasn't about him necessarily. It was about love, period. It was about getting to love, finding it. And so that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Finding what you love, finding something that opens your heart. And that's it. So I hope that answered the question.
I think that absolutely answers the question. I think that is wonderful and beautiful, and a good message to end it all with.
And I'm going to still keep doing it and see what happens.
I hope you do. I love seeing your posts about when you've booked something or you're doing something. It really warms my heart. Like I said, it's really for me, jumping back into it, in my late 30s and into my 40s, it makes me feel like, okay, I'm not the only one who's like, I'm going to make this work.
I love your podcast. It's so cool. It's so creative. And, all of that birthed out of the artist's way, I'm sure.
Yeah. I sat on it for a long time, but then I finally was like, no, Lisa, stop being scared. Just
exactly. Oh, I love it.
Okay, well, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you for asking me. I feel really honored.
Oh.
Yeah, I really do.
Oh, yeah, of course. You're one of the first people I thought of.
Oh, my God, really?
Yeah. I made a list of all the people. I'm like, oh, this person could be good. And, I'm trying to space them out in the right ways.
Yeah. Very cool.
We got to have a flow with the podcast.
Yes, exactly. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been so great talking to you.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you all for listening to this week's episode. You can follow Bunny on Instagram at Bunny Barclay, or she suggests following her agent, Dorigo Talent, at Dorigo Talent Agency. If you're enjoying the show, please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. I cannot tell you how much that means to me. I would love to get more reviews this month. Be sure to follow the show on Instagram at makingitafter40, the number 40. And to catch up on what I'm doing when I'm not podcasting, check out my Instagram at Lisa Rodriguez. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week.